Well, speaking of being up to things that you might not necessarily want the rest of the world to find out about, Vincent K. McMahon is now up to $19.6 million in the unauthorized payment category. Another $5 million has been discovered. And for those of you keeping score, now that's Vince McMahon at $19.6 million, John Laurinaitis still a distant second at $1.5 million, and nobody else on the board as of yet. Wait a minute, this just came in. Bruce Pritchard, they're investigating for an unauthorized payment of $297.50. And elsewise, the field is open in this competition. Brian, this is how much more? 20.
Do you think he can get the 20? Do you think he can get the 20?
I'm pretty sure. I bet you we're going to blow past 20. The Vince McMahon that I worked with closely for a few years never let a chance go by to remind people that in 1995 he lost $6 million. It was the only year the WWF ever lost money, and he was not happy about it, and he would refer to it. And here's more than 3 times that he has paid to, since they got too big for their britches up there. Apparently the britches don't fit. They can't stay in them. But they got too big for their britches up there, and now 20 million? What the fuck? It was a hell of a gum job. But when he lost $6 million in a year on his wrestling business, he was fucking epileptic about it. I'm astonished. Astonished even, I am. Brian, how astonished are you?
I'm not astonished anymore. I'd be surprised if we don't hear more about it. I'd be surprised if we don't hear more about more women. And I'm surprised if a story or two doesn't actually get out. We still haven't heard any of the stories that he paid to have the women not speak about.
Well, that wouldn't be cricket unless they gave the money back to tell those stories.
I don't think it works like that. That's not the way it worked for Harvey Weinstein.
Well, I'm just saying, if they've made a deal, you know.
If you made a deal, but the woman didn't realize that you can't make a deal for something criminal that happened. If it's something criminal that happened, then it doesn't matter how much you paid.
They ought to give the money to charity then.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
There's been a lot of that, actually, the last several years where you can have your cake and eat it too.
That's what the investigation into Bruce for the $297.50 is for, a cake that he charged to the company. But anyway, I hate to see my old friend Johnny Ace losing the competition. This is like a real blow-away game of Jeopardy. You know, that you just really can't stay with till the end because the leader is so far ahead on the board. Johnny's got to make up a lot of room there.
Can I ask you an honest question? Taking your personal...
If you want to depart from your normal fucking...
dishonesty, yeah.
Category, dishonesty, yeah.
Taking your personal feelings for Johnny Ace out of the equation. If you had to be Johnny Ace for a moment and be inside that head for a moment.
Oh, Jesus.
How would you sell yourself?
Wait, but which head, considering the subject we're talking about here? Which head of Johnny's?
How would you sell yourself? How would you sell yourself to a Tony Khan or a fucking Scott D'Amore? Anyone. If you actually wanted to try to continue on in wrestling and you had to try to sell yourself, legitimately, what could you even say?
Well, I mean, we talked about this the other day, and John Laurinaitis is not going to be applying for a job with Impact Wrestling or a revamped Ring of Honor. What he's been, obviously, besides the fact he's been a high-ranking official and or employed there for 20 years, and it doesn't appear he's, obviously been starved. If he was an important enough cog in that wheel to where they'd pay somebody a $1.5 million to go away and not talk about something he did, he's made his money. He doesn't have to stay in the wrestling business, and nobody else is going to pay him anywhere near approaching what he was making there. And Tony Khan, regardless of how Laurinaitis is good, that's why he got the job. That's why, Laurinaitis is good at dressing up in a suit, and he's got a dimple and he's got a smile and he's a very corporate way of doing things, and he doesn't mind swallowing his tongue or his pride or anything else that he has to. And he tells people shit that he is told to tell them rather than what's actually the case. And so that means he's kind of like any other fucking corporate employee. Not as many in wrestling as in other corporations, but the talent, a lot of them don't like him. So especially with the AEW roster comprising mostly of people that wouldn't be John Laurinaitis' idea of mainstream wrestling stars, and honestly, some of them wouldn't be anybody's idea. You know, I don't think Tony Khan's going to, John Laurinaitis is the answer to all of my troubles. And to be honest, he's not. Tony Khan's troubles lie in creative, and, you know, John Laurinaitis, somebody says, he's a great finish guy. Well, fuck. Then worry about staining the trim after you found the carpenter to build the fucking house.
On the topic of Vince, because you and I have talked about his type in the past, did you hear the latest Lacey Evans news?
I have not. Is Lacey back to being a babyface?
Well, no. According to, I have something here from Fightful Select. Those we spoke to said that Evans was a personal favorite of Vince McMahon, who was very hands-on and worked directly with Evans as she came to Raw.
Boy, now see right there, they're trying to be provocative with that phrasing.
Or they know something and they know they can't say it outright. However, we were told that her return this year was chaotic and directionless as played out on TV. And the other thing I saw was a report that there are not currently any plans for her with Triple H's regime.
Wow. And, you know, that's sad, actually, because as we said, she was a good heel. She had personality. She had a good heel demeanor. Haven't seen much of her wrestling, but it didn't look like it was rotten, as I recall. But how she got there to being a heel was the most ignorant way to build a heel I've ever seen, by making them the greatest person in the world who's overcome every tragedy and be as admirable a person as possible. And then, but now I'm better than you are. What? Where did that come from? So now they can't make her a baby face again. It wouldn't take, because what's she going to do? Come out and say, shit, I was on the rag for 3 weeks. You know, I was really grumpy. But at the same time, the whole build for the thing was so distasteful that, she's been penalized now, probably a good talent, and they need, all that they can get. But what do you do? What do you do?
Here's a question for you, and I'm not saying this is necessarily about Lacey Evans, but is it outrageous to think that Vince McMahon may have had at least one personal favorite on the roster at all times in the last 15 years?
I don't think that's ridiculous. I mean, also now we're not just insinuating that. He had his favorite guys and girls. He had his favorite gimmicks. He had his favorite thing that he came up with. Remember, for whatever reason.
How much did he pay Shawn?
Well, yeah, he paid Shawn, what was it? What was he making at that time? $750 grand a year to go home for 3 years. But Shawn didn't even have to blow him. He just took a good bump on the coffin and sold his back. But that's the thing, is he's got Max Dupree, poor old L.A. Knight, Eli Drake was supposedly Vince was hands-on with. That was the last thing that he was doing before his untimely retirement, was producing those Max Dupree things that were just fucking awful. And I think, it probably Vince's weird taste in some things already, and or just fixation on some things that he gets an idea he likes and it supersedes all others. For a while that served him well. In many cases he had as many or more hits as he had misses, but it's been brutal the last little while.